Hello, welcome to everyone tuning in. My name in Civ 3 is Libertarian, and today I'm going to be bringing you my first Civ 3 commentary video. Now, some of you may know me through the Civ 3 Steam group, or might have come across me after watching some of Suede's videos. Um, I thought I'd start off by telling you all a little bit about my background here. Civ 3 has been one of my favorite games ever since childhood. In fact, I used to own the complete version on disc, but then I lost it several years ago. Um, but then back in 2019, I downloaded it on Steam, and then I came across the multiplayer community, and ever since I've been involved in the community. In fact, it's become my favorite game nowadays to play, especially the mod called Future. And Future is the mod that we'll be looking at today. Future is my favorite mod because it's very chess-like strategy game. It has like a really great sandbox, and every game's different. So in this video, I'll be providing insights into the choices I make during gameplay, and I hope that it'll be both informational and entertaining to new players and veteran players alike. So with that, let's get started. So I chose this particular game to start with because I had a really good start and I was able to take full advantage of it, as we'll see in just a second. And if this video gets any traction, I could definitely make more videos of different games to cover. So I thought, for the time being, let's get to it. So we got a 3v3 going on right now. I made teams for Loveburger, and he got to choose which team he wanted. He ended up choosing Reed Bob and Hardrada. So on my team, we have Carlet and F. Calvi. As you see there, I really like my land. I made sure to save the game because we don't want to lose this start. So we got a cow, the cattle, as the start. And we have a river, and we have several BGs and uranium. Those are all excellent things. Plus, a lot of forests. The forest can be chopped to speed production in our cap. Right now, I'm just trying to decide where do I plant. And I think I decided to plant in place. Now, the only reason I wouldn't plant there is maybe I would have planted two away if I saw that cow in advance, because having a coastal cap is really good for various reasons in future. And so I'm talking to my team. Looks like my teammate Carlet's really happy with his start. And so right now I'm doing the basic future opening. You go into Anarchy, turn down your text slider because you don't need any of that in future. Because in future mod, all the texts are researched. You don't have to worry about teching at all. So we're trading locations. If you see in the bottom left corner, you'll see like a grid, and that's how we communicate with each other, like where we're generally located on the map. So we're all like telling each other what's going on. We have mute, so we have the enemy team muted, so they can't see our conversation. And we're trying to figure out what kind of map we got on our hands. Because there's three different types of map generation. There's archipelago, which is like generally more water and small land masses. And then there's continents, which has generally two big land masses. And then there's Pangea, which generally has one big land mass. And so, based on the situation, we're determining that it's probably archipelago. It's probably small islands. And if that's the case, then I mean, I'm looking pretty good. Carlet's looking pretty good because Archipelago is known for having generally the worst land in general. Like people are less likely to have good land on Archie, and so that's why we lucked out. And what you might have noticed, didn't have time to cover it, was that I also have two turns of anarchy. And that's relevant because in future you always want to go anarchy turn one because you start with despotism, but you don't want despotism uh, because you get all sorts of penalties for it, like your tiles are worse. And I won't get into that now, but basically you want to choose a different government, but you have to go through an anarchy period. And I lucked out by having a two-turn anarchy. That is the shortest anarchy period you can have, and mostly only religious civs are able to do that. And then right here, I lucked out again by having a pop right away. And I'm choosing a spot for my free city. And it's a really good spot for multiple reasons. So you can see there's a cow, and you can see there's fishes. Right here, the fishes give 3 food, and the cow gives 4 food, and so um, every citizen requires 2 food to grow, or they require 2 food to sustain. So if you have 4 food and 3 food, that gives you 3 extra food, and that can bring you up to 5 food a turn, which lets you, with a granary, grow in 1 per turn. Now, that might have been a little hard to follow if you're not familiar with the game, but I assure you, with practice, you can come to get used to that. And so basically, I irrigate this grassland here because with the cow, it'll allow me to have 5 bonus food per turn, and once I get a granary out, I'll have my capital and then my second city growing 1 per turn. Now that's huge because it's hard for sometimes if you don't have great land, it's hard to grow 1 per turn. So I'm fortunate enough not only to have a good cap, but a good second city. So I'm feeling really happy here. And the other detail is that my city's going to be next to a lake, and the fresh water is going to mean that I can get beyond size 6, and that means that if I want to grow beyond size 6, I don't need an aqueduct, and that saves me time where I don't have to like build buildings I don't need. It's all around a great thing. So I chopped an explorer. I believe I chopped an explorer, and I have a scout because my civ starts with a scout because they're expansionist, which is available in base game. So me and Carlet are figuring out pretty soon that we're not connected, so that we're gonna have to, if we want to get communication with each other, we're going to have to send a boat to each other. Now Elf Calvi at this point in time is a very new player. But we've been playing with him, and he's been growing really like he's been getting good really quick at this game. And Carlet as well, my other teammate, is also rather new. I mean, I'm gonna say 6 to 8 months he's been here, and he's one of the stronger players at this point who play this mod. And right now, I was talking about the potential of getting a triple or a double pop. And what that refers to is if you pop a settler and you still have your settler and you pop another hut, you have a chance of getting an auto city. Like it's called an auto pop, that's what we call it. And you can only get it if you, well, you can get it any time, but as an expansionist civ, only expansionist civs can get it. So the problem is that the moment I place my second city, I can't get it because I have an above average number of cities. So I thought it was nice to just give it a shot and see if I could get a third city before like turn 10. Like that's insane. But I wasn't lucky. It only happens to me like once a year. But you know, I would argue my start was so good that like it would have been stupid if I had been lucky enough to also get a third city right away. So as you can see, I'm trying to get 2 granaries out. Both these cities I want to have granaries because I want them to grow as fast as possible. And then I'm also scouting because I'm looking for res. I want. Now in future, oil is king. Oil gets you like the strong navy ships, bombers, and you need oil for like the strong military units as well, like the ones that can do unique stuff, um, like paratroopers, tanks, etc. So I'm poking a little fun at Calvi because he's given me a location that it's not really something that we don't have like an F. We only have A through E when we're talking about locations. So I'm, but yeah. So he says E91. So he's kind of like in the bottom corner of the map between. And since this simulates a globe, this map, if you go right, you'll cross the globe and you'll end up. So if you end up on the far right side of the map, you'll end up on the left. Um, if you keep going east. And so he's kind of at the bottom right corner and maybe partly in the bottom left corner. So right now, I'm not spending a lot of time in this screen, but I'm just looking, I'm just counting tiles. I'm like, I need 5 bonus food. So I pop maps. I still don't see any res. Not like the good res, like oil, aluminum, rubber. Those are the good res. So the only thing that doesn't make this a perfect start is that I don't have a lot of strategic resources. But other than that, I'm doing great. And my worker is going to give me enough shields to get the granary next turn, and I've planned this out. So it says the granary is going to be done in 3 turns, but I'm going to get 10 shields when I chop this forest, and the granary will be done. And then I have enough gold to rush a granary in a Porto the turn after that. And the reason you want granaries really early, as I was mentioning before, is that granaries double your growth essentially, and then that's really kind of like exponential growth. Like I'll be doing exponentially better than my opponents if I pull this off really quickly. So I click F11 and I read it really fast, but I'm trying to see how I compare. So I'm also trying to see what my opponent's cities are looking like. If you click F11 in game, it shows you some cities, it shows you demographics. You can see whether an opponent is popped. So right now all the early moves are like over with, and I'm able to sit here and just think about what I'm going to do this game. Now, I'm playing as Portugal, and Portugal's actually considered a top tier civ in Archie maps, which we've established that we're playing on an Archie map. The reason Portugal's a top tier civ is because their unique unit is a boat called the Carrack, and it's been buffed in future, um, and it kind of dominates early game navy until people get oil. They're stuck with just frigates and galleons, and Portugal has Carracks, which have higher stats than both of those units, and they're also they double as both frigates and because of that, it's hard to Portugal can kind of dominate the seas early on, and as you'll see later in the game, players will just straight up run away from them for two reasons. They'll run away from a carrack because they might be if it's an enemy galleon, they might have troops on it, and they know they'll probably lose in combat. But the second reason is they don't want to give you a golden age because if you get a kill with a carrack, that's a golden age for you. So because of that, I can feel a little safer than usual. I think I decided to irrigate, yes. People are scared to boat me because I have very strong naval units. And so I kind of use that to get away with a bit of extra greed. As we'll see in this game. As we can actually see right now. See, I'm making a lot of workers, and some people wouldn't agree with this move. They'd be like, "You don't need like 3 to 4 workers. Like make your make a new city settler and make a new city as soon as possible." But I figure workers are really useful if they're producing resources for you. So if I chop this forest, then I get 10 shields, and workers only cost 5 shields. So if I get 10 free shields, the workers pay for themselves, and then I still get the settler I wanted for anyway. So 2 turns to chop. I move another worker there. I irrigate. Let me see. Yes, because I irrigate the cow, now I can use the uranium. And uranium's it's really good to be worked by your city. So that's what I'm thinking about here. Just maximizing every like shield and every commerce tile. And I'm just 1 shield short of getting this carrack out, which I'm sad, but I have to rush it. And the reason for that is like I want to get that carrack out ASAP and work on other stuff. So Loveburger, who's player 4, playing as the French, is my enemy captain. He was the one I made teams for. He's the second highest rated on the ELO ladder in this lobby. And he is a really good player. So we'll see what he's got going on this game. Meanwhile, I get this carrack out. Oh, and I load the Explorer on it because I planned this out beforehand because I'm trying to find my ally and also scout the map as soon as possible. So what am I doing here? I think I'm trying to decide what I want to do in my second city. Because I chopped the forest, now I got 10 shields and I only need 5 more for the settler. That's how you get a settler in 1 turn. Yes, I think what I decide on is a Coliseum. Kind of for that reason that you just saw. Coliseums provide, in future they provide 4 happy faces, and so if you have a Coliseum, then you bunch of units without your city going into disorder, without you having to drag the happy slider too far up. The only problem is it's kind of expensive, like a bigger, it's somewhat of a big investment early game. Because either you could build a coliseum or you could build settlers. And some would argue more cities is better, but it really depends on the situation. So I found my teammate, Carlet, playing as the Indians, and I see his borders, and so I tell him, I'll see you next turn. Because I'm doing so well, I decide to be extra greedy this game, as we'll see in a second. Yeah, the other reason I'm building a Coliseum is because it's a culture building and it'll expand your borders, which will let me build harbor and offshore and use the sea tiles for that city. And the great thing about sea tiles is that they can't be bombed out. So if your opponent has bombers and you're working the sea, they can't do anything about it um, to like harm your city. If you're working only sea tiles or mostly sea tiles. So I'm looking for resources. I'm looking for oil specifically, mostly. Oh, and then Carlet disconnected. Um, so what we ended up doing, there's about a 10-minute wait. I just skipped ahead for you guys. So we're back in the game. Well, we have to redo this turn. Alright, so we make it back in the game. So I replant that city. I make sure it's on a river because for the same reason Porto was on freshwater. I want to make sure that it's on freshwater. It's always a good idea to plant freshwater for the most part. So I recontact him, trade maps, see what's going on with. Now he has okay land. I mean he has a cow and a couple lakes, so that's good. And so now I'm looking for because I've already contacted one of my teammates. Now I'm searching for resources. Now you'll know in future a lot of the best strategic resources spawn typically in the poles, like at the very north of the map or the very south, and also sometimes in the middle of the map, like in jungle, marsh, like typically bad land. It's kind of like a balancing thing, is that the best resources late game don't spawn in the best. And they spawn in like the worst land, and um, but because we already have like I'm already in the tropics and there's no resources here. I'm going to the poles, so I'm thinking this map's resources probably in the poles. So um, I'm going north. And then this scout is just going to see if there's anything down here because the land keeps going. I mean, there could be an enemy here, there could be res, we don't know. I'm only rushing the artillery because I know that I can probably. It's called an underrush. I didn't want the artillery, but the artillery was cheap enough that I could buy it and then switch to it something else. And then I see pink in the corner, and that's Loveburger, the enemy captain. So I'm like, okay. Arguably, this is the most vulnerable part of the game. As in, if somebody was rushing me right now, I could be in trouble because I don't have all my cities defended yet. So I see tundra, I get excited. I'm like, maybe there's some resources here. Rubber, okay. Rubber on its own isn't the best, but it's still something. And then I see the good resources, oil and aluminum. And it's even on the same landmass as me. The only thing is that I have to. The quickest way to get those is to send a settler down there, make a boat, make a harbor, and send those to the rest of my cities via harbor trade. And what you just saw was a controversial move. I just disbanded my draft to get 13 shields. It's one of my favorite strategies, and it's one that I don't think new players usually do. The thing is, if you're worried about being attacked, you don't want to disband your units. But if you can get away with it and you have extra happy because you're building a coliseum or it's your capital, you can get away with disbanding drafts to speed up your production. Especially if you're building a building you can only build in peacetime. Because the sooner you're able to get into wartime, the better. Because for those of you that don't know, wartime adds an extra shield to every tile producing a shield by your city when you're creating a military based unit. Which translates to either anywhere between 50% to 100% increase in shields. I mean, it depends on on the situation, but regardless, if you're focusing on fighting, it's huge to go into wartime. And to go into wartime, for those of you that aren't familiar, you click on your domestic advisor, and it's right under your change government option. Uh, the reason you don't do is because you need to, like, you don't. The reason you don't do it all the time is that you have to declare peace with somebody to go back to producing non-military buildings, like markets, coliseums, etc. See, it's not something you. Oh, and then so I decided I want to build a factory, and that's what happens this game. And the thing about Future is building a factories, it's not easy. You can't do it every game because it's expensive. It takes a long time. You can't build settlers, you can't build other things. It basically puts your best producing city offline for a decent amount of time. But there's ways to speed up the process. So if you chop forests, you get 10 shields per forest. And if you disband toes, that's 13 shields. And so basically something that would have taken 15 turns, I get done in like 6 or 7 turns. Factories are great in Feud because a lot of the units in Feud are expensive. And what you're aiming for is having at least a couple cities that can produce units very quick. And as you can see, I have uranium. So my goal is hook the uranium, make a factory, then make a nuclear plant. Nuclear plants are they're the best power plants because they increase your shield production by 100%. And I think most of the other or all the other power plants only increase it by 50%. So having uranium is huge. Yeah, so I'm telling my teammate factoring 2 turns, and he's looking at the turn timer, and at the bottom right it says 2016 AD. Or sorry, 2019, 1019 AD. So basically turn 19. And a turn 21 factory is really good. So, and the thing is it's possible. I think more new players should try to make factories early. And because I invested in workers early, I'm able to just keep improving and not have to worry about making workers for the time being. So I see a tundra island and I'm thinking there's probably a bunch of resources here. But I think I find out there aren't really many any, and I get a little disappointed. But and this is where I count my moves, and I decide to hurry the settler. Now I don't have any bonus food in this city, so normally you don't want to rush a settler turn when it has size 3 because it takes away 2 population, and you need minimum of 3 to grow 1 per turn. Basically, a bunch of math stuff. The only reason I do it right now is because I found res in the south and I want to get it as soon as possible. And I'm willing to make sacrifices to make that happen. So that's what happens. Then we see Love Burger's pink galleon right here. And we don't know what's on it, but for all we know, there's military on it. And so eventually Love Burger is going to notice, if he hasn't already. He doesn't know that. Yeah, he gets way out of there. See, the moment he sees it. Now, I actually had no intention of attacking him. Not really. because my priority is getting those resources in the south. But like I said, the Karak is so intimidating that everyone runs away from it. And that's why Portugal's a top tier civ in future. So I'm warning my teammate Love has a galleon because I don't want Carlet to be surprised if troops land near him. Loveburger is known for his early boating strats. Alright, so I'm back. My stream cut out while I was recording, so I do have to go back a bit. So, I was loading this Karak because I'm trying to get that res city, so let's see what happens after that. Alright, so I'm looking for res. And I hook the uranium because my plan is to make a nuclear plant. There you go. And I keep disbanding toes. And that's a lot of toes I'm disbanding. I mean, that's part of the reason that it was really beneficial to get my second city growing one population per turn as soon as possible, because I can send those drafts to my cap and disband it. And the thing about getting an early nuclear plant, there's two good reasons. There's the fact that nuclear plants are amazing, obviously, but also because it's the last economic building I want, and then after that I can go wartime. So I want to get it done as quick as possible. And you got to keep in mind, we're talking about an early turn 20 nuclear plant. And that's relevant because that's really quick. A lot of civs are only getting like their third or fourth city out by then and don't have too much going on. Um, in fact, if you're going to rush somebody, most rushes only reach the opponent by about turn 20 to 22, depending on how far they are away. But if it's Archie and you don't know where your opponent is, from my experience, until about turn 22 to 25, you're pretty safe. We saw Loveburger's boat earlier, and that was about the right timing. As in, if he had wanted to land us, that was the time. Because we were so quick about everything, we were already in a good position by the time he arrived. So, oh, then the other thing to keep in mind, especially for the new players out there, is that uh, once you've played enough games, I mean, you pay attention to the turn timer, because right now we're on turn 23. If somebody was rushing an aircraft carrier, for example, and they were doing it as soon as they could only get it out by maybe turn 18, and they could only get a couple bombers by like turn 20, and then they gotta probably make a fighter because they gotta find you, and it's like if someone had rushed us with a carrier, we would only be experiencing it right now. But the thing is that we're in a good position. Like, our king isn't naked. A lot of new players will have their king naked turn 24, and that is a big mistake, because an enemy just needs one or two bombers to just wipe you out. So if you keep in mind that, just cover your king by like turn 20 and you're good. Like it's gonna be hard to kill you with like a snipe. Now, there's also the cruise snipe, and that's really fun. In fact, I am somewhat vulnerable. If like somebody had like a nuke sub with sub cruise, I wouldn't be able to see it, and they could snipe me and they could kill me, which wasn't even something I was accounting for. And honestly, it happens so. It's a strat that's highly. I feel like it's underrated. Not enough people use it, um, but it's huge. Get a couple sub crews on a nuke sub, shoot the enemy cap or where you think their king is, and you have a high chance of just murdering them in like a six-player game. Anyway, nuclear plant, and then I'm gonna go wartime, I think. There we go. Now I'm thinking about my golden age, so I'm like, someone make a galleon for me so I can get into golden age, because now I got a nuke plant, I'm in wartime, and once I get a golden age, then I'll easily be first MFG, uh, highest production. And if I can time that with getting resources hooked, then I'll be in a commanding position for this game. So 45 shields per turn. It's turn 25 and my cab's doing 45 per turn in wartime, which is pretty good. I mean, that's really high for turn 25. But that's possible, as you guys can see. It's something you all can do. So I'm making an airport. Because I'm choosing to go for airport to pass the res this game. The only thing I'm worried about right now is losing that res city to like a random boating. So I want to protect it as soon as I can. And that's why I require my teammates' gold, because I want to rush an airport in there just to be safe. Again, I'm thinking I have such a commanding economic lead that the only thing that can really destroy me is if I lose that city before I can adequately defend it. And Carlet has been saving gold this game because he's a commercial civ and he decided that that was going to be his role, to save gold. Um, because he doesn't have easy access to resources. Um, and that's the thing, is that every player who's good at feud knows that in different situations you have different roles. Like sometimes you're the guy who's who has to play defensive because you're right next to the enemy and you just have to buy as much time for your teammates to help you out or to save you or carry. Sometimes sometimes you're just in the position where you're just supporting with gold and stuff for the time being. And sometimes you're the person who does all the dirty work. Um, and obviously it depends. And a good few players able to be flexible. And in fact, F. Calvi, I want to shout out to him. This was my first week of playing with him, and he was brand new. And all the games I played with him, he was excellent about supporting the team with information and providing resources. Like, while you're learning the gaming, that's a great thing to do. And so, I know the only thing that can fuck me is if I get landed this turn. So I'm like waiting. I'm like, the moment I can, I'm airporting this unit in because I need this city. And then tense, but the moment passes, and now I feel more secure. And now I got oil. Scouting Loveburger with the Carrack, and I'm sending it to Carlet. And that's the other thing about feud is multitasking. So I was focusing on getting that res colony or res city as fast as possible, but at the same time I'm trying to secure a golden age and also develop a strategy. So Carlet told me he's making a galleon at Madras, so I'm sending my galleon there and I'm like telling him where to send his. So Reed Bob has an explorer on me. I don't want him to explore me, so what I do is I move end of turn and the beginning of the next turn to capture it. Because I don't want him seeing what's going on with me. And then I get on the oil. Because I don't want someone putting a unit on the oil and taking it. And then I put another unit in the city. Oh, well, that didn't quite work out as I intended, but... And then now I move my king to Guimara's. And the reason for that is... in future, you don't want to keep your king in one place all game. It's risky. People often expect your king to be in cap and they might try to snipe it. Or they might get a spy on you and they might find where your king is. And then try to snipe it later on. But if you move your king all the time, it's a lot harder to get sniped. That's another thing people forget about a lot. It's just moving your king constantly so that your enemy has a harder time sniping it, basically. Now I'm about to secure the aluminum. Ah. So I could attack him and get my golden age, but I decide that the odds are better off if he attacks me because he has one attack, I have two defense. Because if I attack him, then it's three against two, and the odds are just worse. And if I don't, if I don't get a golden, if I lose attacking him, then it takes a lot longer for me to get golden age, and timing is really important. So now that I have golden age, my cap is able to make one bomber per turn, and that is huge. And so now my plan is, hey Carla, give me a city that I can stack bombers in and Crater Love Burger. And Carlet's already like, yeah, I got you. Let me plant you a new city that's a little less valuable to me though. And he says prep heli. I'm like, okay, that's a smart plan. So I switched to a helicopter. So keep in mind, my cap has an airport, and so I'm making one bomber per turn, which means all my planes are going to be vet turn, which is huge. It's like that extra hit point is huge and killing anti-air and stuff. And so the way I deal with growing, even while I'm focusing on military, is I have one city committed to growth all game long. So Guimaras is just making settlers every 2 turns, while my other two cities are making units to fight. It would be a waste to make settlers in your capital because your capital's my capital's way too um, productive. Like I'd be wasting like 40 shields per turn. It would be stupid. I just want to give a moment to appreciate the music in this game. I've been playing this for years and it never gets old for me. A lot of players, you'll see they just turn off the music, but I always keep it on. So because I have an airport, I realize I can upgrade to jets. And the reason I'm doing that is because someone could come at me with a surprise carrier and start trying to bomb me, which could slow me down, cause some damage. But if I'm prepared with like a handful of jets, then a carrier attack won't hurt me as much. And you always want to have a couple jets just for recon purposes. You never know when you're going to recon a city and see an empty king, a naked king somewhere that you can just snipe. Or you never know when it's like there's a hidden spot and you just check it out and you see that your opponent's about to land you and you're like, "Oh, let's take care of that." Now I'm worried that my 2 HP Carrack Loveburger might try to take it down, so I'm waiting until the end of turn to move it so I can move it again. Because I want to land and explore somewhere else. Yeah, see? And that's where I noticed, okay, he's got mobile Sams. He's scared of getting bombed. And I make fun of the fact that he's small. He's only got 2 cities. It's actually rather surprising because, I mean, Loveburger's a rather good player. He doesn't usually make so few cities, but I'm assuming there must have been complications that caused that. Um, so I'm trying to get out of this destroyer as quick as possible because I want to see if someone's got stuff on me. Maybe a nuke sub with crews, or maybe a transport to land me. I'm figuring it's my only coastal city. I need boats out. And I'm asking Carlet to hook me rubber because that's the only resource I'm lacking to have the big three. Big three lets you make like modern armors, the strongest land unit in the game, for example. And also paratroopers. You can't make paratroopers without rubber, and I'm lacking rubber. Carlet's like, oh, I've already got this planned out for you. It turns out he had like 3 rubbers on his island. So Loveberger's smart. He's got an explorer positioned here. A lot of skilled players will have explorers and choke points to see what's going on. To like warn them of like in advance that they might be attacked soon or something. To give info to their allies about what's going on. Well, this is actually why in our community we have a player notorious for that, for having a lot of explorers. Bob Backlund, he annoyingly so always has explorers positioned in like the most critical parts of the map all the time, and it's frustrating because he'll just tell his allies what's going on, and you can't get away with anything. Yep, so I see that Reedbob has oil, and I'm already thinking like ahead of time. Like, obviously we have a plan in motion for me to bomb Loveburger, but after that I have to deal with Reedbob, who's actually the biggest opponent right now, and like he's the one who is scaling the best, has like he's the one who's going to carry the game for them if anyone is. And the only problem is that at the moment we don't have any way to reach him, because it takes time to set up for that kind of thing. And I don't know what Reed Bob's got going on apart from oil, but I see his score and he's second in score. No, sorry, third. but he's top of their team in score, and he's also known as being a really good boom player. He's really good at uh, growing and becoming powerful, like having a lot of shields and being hard to kill. In fact, he's known for having a ton of bombers, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. All right. So he gives it to me. The first thing I do is helicopter in units, and then I grab my bombers and a jet, and I drop them in there. I grab one of those jets and I drop it in there. The jet's just to let me see what's going on. All right, and then I also end of turn move Hardrada's scout last minute. Disordered cap, but I don't care. I mean, I do care, but I I just feel really satisfied about the fact that even Hardrada doesn't get to scout me. And so now, here's where the fun begins. Finally, we're engaging. And let me see. I check landing zones and I decide against it. I don't have enough units. And unfortunately, because one of the things you got to keep in mind is that because this is a really old game and the Steam support, the servers are kind of made of cardboard. I know from experience that you typically shouldn't ever bomb someone in the middle of the turn. The reason for that is if there's a high chance of a bug where if you're inside, like right now, I'm inside a city screen. If you bomb someone when they're in a city screen, there's a decent chance that the game bugs out and they get dropped, and then you have to reload, and it's like a 5 to 10 minute process, and it's annoying. And Loveburger, for whatever reason, is especially has this problem especially, and so I'm being very careful to make sure to only bomb him at the end or the beginning of turns. Um, you will note though, I did rush a harbor because I'm on top of rubber and I want that rubber. So now I'm bombing, and then now I bomb at the beginning of turn because uh, it's just the beginning, and Loveburger knows that he needs to wait it out for a second. All right, and now we're finally gonna get these wines. It's usually smart to have a. I get scared there for a second because I think that's an enemy destroyer, but then I realize it's just my teammate's destroyer. Um, anyways, I was saying it's usually smart to have flax on your most valuable cities because flax are really good at shooting down like planes. And if someone tries to stealth bomb your cities, they can take out your buildings. And if I lost my factory and nuke plant, that would be disastrous. And so I'm just preemptively having a few flags. Um, Being cautious is just one of those things where it's like you just learn over time. You're like your entire world could be destroyed by like or ended by like someone just coming in with like a small number of units and again that's part of the beauty of future. It's like somebody with just two cities could ruin somebody with like a huge empire just by like making the right moves or having the right units in the right places. And so now I'm waiting till end of turn, and now I'm like, okay, let's go. My goal is to crater love. Make sure that he's just okay. Get rid of his everything that's improved, basically. And now, even while I'm bombing love, I'm moving a Carrick with a worker across the ocean toward Reed Bob. Because my plan is after I take care of love, I'll move on to Reed Bob with my full might. And then I'm feeling bad for Loveburger at this point. It's gotta feel bad to be in this position. But because I'm so focused on this, I fail to notice that Loveburger has a res city of his own. And I fail to notice this for many turns. As you'll see later, isn't until one of my teammates alerts me to the situation that I realize what's going on. And that's the thing is that like, what's the word? Tunnel vision? Tunnel vision is definitely very prevalent in this game. You got so many things you're trying to focus on, all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot. So at this point, Loveburger's land's looking like Swiss cheese. But then I'm like, someone passed him oil because he has a fighter. What the heck? And F. Calvi's trying to tell me he settled near you. And I'm like, who is Lion? What are you talking about? I'm like, oh. And so I rush a paratrooper. And because I have an airport in Lagos, I can actually paradrop the paratrooper straight from the city. And that's Love Burger's probably his only source of oil, so if he's cratered and has no res, he probably is going to be like essentially out of the game. And I'm making an intelligence agency because my hope is that there's a chance I can either steal their maps and see everything, or maybe I can snipe their king. These pesky barbs. So in the back of my mind this whole time is that obviously I'm fighting love and Reed Bob looks like he's booming, but I'm scared this entire game. Like, what's Hardrada doing? I mean, Hardrada is known for his king snipes. Like, he's good at just like, I don't want to say he just gets lucky all the time, but because he's a good player, but like he tends to find the enemy king and just like take him out even with like less going on for him, less growth or production. He's just plays smart with what he's got. So anyway, I check out Reed Bob City. I see that he's here, and then I try to investigate. No, I try to steal their map, and that's almost 300 gold wasted. And I'm like, damn, dude, that's rough. That is a really rough mission. So now I'm like, okay, let's try to take out this plane. Let's try to bomb the city itself and take it out. And I'm like, okay, let's keep bombing Orleans because that's where his fighter is. He shoots down another bomber. Hmm. And then I'm a little salty because I still haven't killed his fighter. And so this is where it really begins. So I'm switching to paratroopers because I'm like, okay, I'm about to have a base on Reed Bob. And Reed Bob's their strongest opponent. He hasn't been touched for about 40 turns. Yeah, 41 turns. I send the helicopter to Cap because I have a plan. And not a lot of people know about this. Oh, I actually forgot about the paratrooper for a whole turn. I was supposed to drop it last turn, but I was so preoccupied I forgot to drop it. I wanna see what I can do to prevent Love's Oil, so I'm gonna drop this end of turn and see what happens. And so I drop it. Okay. I move to the oil because I'm like, I don't know if I can take the city, but I can cut his oil. So no more oil for Loveburger. And I don't make an airbase right away because here's my plan. A lot of people won't expect if you helicopter paratroopers in and then land them the same turn. Because if I reveal that I have an airbase and then put units on it and then wait a whole turn, they have like 2 turns to like bomb me to shreds. But if I put an airbase down, then load a full helicopter to that airbase and then land him, he doesn't have time to react. And a lot of people aren't aware of this mechanic, but paratroopers, if you load them onto a helicopter and then move them to an airbase at the beginning of the turn, you can land them that same turn. And it catches people totally by surprise. And that's what we'll demonstrate during this game. And I'm saying, of course he does, because Loveburger is known for his battleships. That is like his. What's the word? What's the word? His. Oh, damn it. I'm struggling for the right word. When someone owns a product or like an idea, they have like a fuck. Well, anyway, that's a certified love strat. He loves his battleships. So anyway, I'm trying to do as much damage as I can. Oh, patent it. Yeah, that's right. So that's a patent love strat. Is making battleships. And the thing is that a lot of players don't make battleships because it's kind of a high investment and it's like it's a slow unit and a lot of players just don't feel like making it because it's one of the most expensive units. But if you're a love burger, you don't give a fuck about that and you just make it because it works for you. And that's awesome. Oh yeah, this was a stream game by the way, and I'm covering it obviously after the fact. Obviously, I'm not as skilled as Suede, and I can't just be entertaining while I'm playing. Obviously, I'm not as alpha as Suede, but you know, is what it is. And remember, this entire game, I'm tense about the moment that never happens, which is a spoiler, unfortunately. But unfortunately, Hardrada never ends up attacking me, and I was sweating the whole game thinking, oh, Hardrada's about to land me or screw me over, but he never does. Imagine my disappointment when I see I still can't kill that one fighter. Mm. That was a risk I took bombing him mid-turn because he could have dropped there, and I shouldn't have done that. I wanted his fighter dead so bad. So now Loveburger has no oil and has no more fighters left. So I'm like, he's out. And now I'm ready to fully commit to Reed Bob. And then Carlos asked me a question I don't fully understand, but then he explains he's asking about the B key. So what he's referring to is if you have a naked settler about to be killed by a barb, if you spam B at the beginning of turn, you can plant a city and the barb won't successfully capture it in time due to lag. And that's a strat that's like almost frowned upon, but also isn't banned in the current community. But some people are really salty about it. And so I'm decided, alright, this is the turn. I'm done bullying love, I'm basing Reed Bob now. And then Carlet distracts me. He's like, Love has a battleship south of my city. And I'm like, alright, let's check it out. I don't see anything, so I'm like, okay, let's check it out more. Nope. I'm like, I don't see it. And now we're ready to do it. Let's go. So Reed Bob should see it right about now on his map. I say NC, which stands for no contact, because I mean business. So those paratroopers on the helicopter, they can still move, so I drop them. And Reed Bob's noticed, but oh my god, look, a naked cap. Unbelievable. He drafted once, but I attack it, and I take his cap, which is wild. And the first thing I do is like, oh my god, let's just sell everything. Right click, you sell it. Even if he recaptures, he's lost all his good buildings. That's gotta be brutal. A factory and a hydro plant. His MFG just got cut in half. And this is my mistake. I'm lucky, but I'm too busy gloating to make the moves to defend the city I just took. I have 1 HP paratrooper in his cap. And I let it and I let him attack me, and then it promotes, but he could have taken it that turn. I think a part of me is just like felt like I couldn't defend it, but I was too distracted and busy gloating, and I could have lost it. And, that was a mistake. It's one of those things where it's like you gotta stay focused. So I finally find Loveburger's battleship. I'm like, let's get out of there. So I'm thinking of landing Nicaea. I think it's empty. I sell the last building I can sell, and then airdrop right there. Yep. Reed Bob wasn't ready because I had landed so quick. He wasn't able to draft in time. But he makes a mech, and I'm really lucky to be able to win that fight. That was some good RNG. And then I tried to reinforce the city because I'm like scared I'm about to lose it. Now I make an airbase, and I'm trying to get as many units to the field as possible. I attack his 1 HP paratrooper, lose, but then I bomb it and it dies. So keep in mind, he's been railing, and rails are extremely good because I don't have rails. The way I see it though, I've cut off some of his resources and I've cut off his cap. And I'm so focused, I have no idea what my teammates are saying at this point. But to me, this is the most important period of the game. Let me see, what do I do? I have so much gold and I'm in such a rush, I just rush the paratroopers. I do under rush this one. Always good to sell your opponent's buildings. Oh, then I decided to abandon. So I'm thinking about trying to paratroop onto Constantinople to reinforce it, but I realize I'm out of range. And he goes in and attacks, and he should win the fight. But I have good RNG, and now I'm 1 HP. What I should be doing is reinforcing Constantinople, but I hesitate, and I'm... oh, but right now I'm rushing. I'm like, I realize I want to keep his cap. He wants it desperately. So I'm... But the thing is, it's a really slow process. So here I am trying to slowly load the helicopter. Slowly load the helicopter. I don't even load correctly. I only load 2, but I'm in such a rush. I'm like, let's just get in this city. Good. Now he can't take his cap back. I blindly attack Caesarea and I win. And I start to realize maybe he only has flax in there. I can't see because he's got a plane above it, but I'm thinking maybe he only has flax. And honestly, at this point, the game is almost over. So my opponent, or sorry, my teammates are thinking about what they're doing. They're trying to take over Love City. Um, his res city for his oil. I don't even notice until after the game. So I land the 2 empty cities. He tries to stop me from taking Heraclea, but I get good RNG again. I take a city, now he has no res. I cut off his other cities. And then I reinforce with that unit. Let me see. And then all I see is this fighter. I'm thinking he must not have much in there. I'm just gonna go for it. And I win that, and I'm like, his king's probably naked right now. Let's see. And there it is. And that was the end of the game. There was a disconnect, but they GG'd after that. Bottom line, that was a really fun game. Oh, and that's the end of the video. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions or if you want me to do any more videos like this, let me know. I enjoyed doing it. It was a little different for me. I've never done anything like this before. Um, I really like playing Future. If any of you guys want to like get better at Feud, like hit me up. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good time, good night, or whatever. And till next.